What began as a congressional oversight hearing quickly turned into one of the most uncomfortable and explosive exchanges involving Kristi Noem since taking over the Department of Homeland Security, after Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove confronted her over the growing influence of longtime Trump ally Corey Lewandowski inside DHS, and then asked a question that instantly stunned the hearing room.
The gentlelady from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretary, for joining us. Finally, you are in charge of protecting the homeland. And so your judgment and the judgment of your senior staff can be the difference between life and death. So I think that judgment would need to be unassailable. Why then, is the question, have you made Corey Lewandowski your de facto chief of staff who possesses an unchecked level of power at DHS? Under your leadership, this person has done things like fire your FEMA administrator while sitting behind your desk, which is your job to do, lobby to build the controversial detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz, which has turned into a legal boondoggle costing Florida millions, and have veto and reviewing and signing power over large DHS contracts and grants, which again is your job. DHS has critical agency components like the Secret Service, FEMA, Border Patrol, cybersecurity. So does Corey Lewandowski have national security experience, military experience, law enforcement experience? No. He is a lobbyist, a failed campaign manager, which is causing my constituents who are waiting for their FEMA dollars and me to wonder what are his qualifications for this job. So according to the Wall Street Journal, you and Mr. L have a close relationship that has made President Trump, quote, uncomfortable. The president reportedly denounced Corey Lewandowski as your chief of staff due to reports of a romantic relationship between the two of you. So instead you designated him as a special government employee, a position he has had well beyond the allowed 130 days and requires him to disclose if he is making money off of his position. Trump knows that this guy is shady. Corey has a decades-long record of physical battery, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. Despite being fired or removed from virtually every position he has ever held due to misconduct, he now wields unchecked, unconfirmed, undisclosed power over your department. This person has no experience running anything close to Department of Homeland Security or even advising someone in your position. He is unqualified, which again has left my constituents and I wondering why he is your top official. So Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
one thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
is an
time,
advisor
Secretary, it is
and has
okay for
no,
you to be
no
offended
authority
by
to
the
be making
question.
any
It is
decisions.
okay for you to
has
be
no
offended
authority
by the
to
question.
Be, making
But it is
decisions
also
and
a
putting
real
in position.
question.
So what I would say
and
to
you should be able to
is
answer
that
the
what we do at the Department of Homeland Security every single
and without
day,
any hesitation,
every single day is to protect
if
this
someone
country
is
and
asking
to make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
As garbage,
because it is not about your sex life.
that you have brought
it is
that
about
up.
your
So
judgment.
that kind of garbage
It is about reclaiming my time so that I can hear myself.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from California, but it'd be nice if you would let her respond.
I will. I want to let you know it is about your judgment and decision-making. It is about the 260,000 employees that work under you that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. It is about conflict of interest. It is about a national security risk. Department of Homeland Security was created right after 9/11 to protect the homeland. And DHS has circulated an internal bulletin to law enforcement partners warning that the conflict of the war we're in could inspire lone actors or small-scale cyber activity inside the United States, according to a memo obtained by ABC News. So American lives are at risk. The people who work for you are at risk. And they want to know that the person at the top, you, are making decisions clearly, without any sort of cloudiness. And that they're your decisions because you're the secretary who was confirmed. That's what this is about. Saving the lives of Americans and not costing them millions of dollars and not having a secretary who's compromised in her decision-making. And Mr. Chair, before I yield my time, I would like to enter into the record some articles and I'm asking for unanimous consent. Noem tightens her grip on DHS. Lewandowski fired FEMA admin.
Without
I'll say
objection.
okay. The next one is Kristi Noem secretly took a cut of political donations from ProPublica.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem fires pilot over a blanket, but is forced to reinstate him to fly home. Wall Street Journal.
Without objection.
Lewandowski taking out trash at Noem's D.C. home. Daily Beast.
Without objection.
Barbie's Mile High privacy chamber with alleged lover exposed. Wall Street Journal. How Corey Lewandowski became Kristi Noem's gatekeeper at DHS.
Without objection.
A pilot fired over Kristi Noem's missing blanket and the constant chaos inside DHS. Wall
Objection.
Street Journal. Police charge Trump campaign manager with assault. PBS News.
Without objection.
Woman who accused Corey Lewandowski of assault speaks out. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. CBS
Objection.
News. Lewandowski's firm quietly inked deal with Venezuela-owned company Politico.
Without objection.
List of U.S. cities raising security amid Iran conflict. Newsweek.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem, I have a few more, I'm sorry. Kristi Noem misled Congress yesterday about top aides' role in DHS contracts.
Without objection.
Policy number 10271 from ICE, it is an anti-fraternization policy prohibiting romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and their subordinates. And with that, I yield.
Without objection. Gentleman from Texas, recognized 5 minutes.
But underneath the headline-grabbing moment was actually a much larger argument Democrats are trying to make about accountability, ethics, and whether one of the most sensitive national security agencies in the country is being run through unofficial power networks instead of transparent leadership structures. Kamlager-Dove opened by emphasizing something many Americans may not think about when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security. DHS is not just another federal agency. It oversees FEMA disaster response, border security, cybersecurity infrastructure, the Secret Service, immigration enforcement, counterterrorism coordination, and emergency preparedness. In other words, the department is responsible for decisions that can literally affect life and death during national emergencies, natural disasters, cyber attacks, and security threats. That context matters because Democrats increasingly argue that the issue is not simply who Kristi Noem hires around her. The concern is whether unelected individuals with unclear authority are exercising influence over federal operations without proper accountability or oversight. Kamlager-Dove then laid out a series of allegations surrounding Lewandowski's role inside DHS. According to reports she referenced, Lewandowski allegedly participated in personnel decisions, influenced contract reviews, weighed in on FEMA leadership, and acted as a gatekeeper within the department despite lacking formal qualifications in Homeland Security, military operations, emergency management, or law enforcement. That's where the hearing began shifting from political theater into a broader debate over how power operates inside modern administrations. Throughout American history, presidents and cabinet officials have relied on informal advisors. That part is not new. But the controversy here is about whether unofficial advisors can effectively wield government authority while avoiding the scrutiny that comes with Senate confirmation, ethics disclosures, or clearly defined responsibilities. Kamlager-Dove argued that this creates a dangerous gray zone, especially inside a department created after 9/11, specifically to coordinate national security and crisis response. Her point was essentially this: if someone has enough influence to affect staffing decisions, contracts, disaster response, or policy direction, then the public deserves transparency about who they are, what authority they hold, and whether conflicts of interest exist. And then came the moment that instantly dominated headlines. Kamlager-Dove directly asked Noem whether she had engaged in sexual relations with Lewandowski during her tenure, leading DHS. The room immediately tensed because questions about personal relationships are extraordinarily rare in congressional hearings, unless lawmakers believe the relationship could create conflicts of interest, ethical concerns, or national security vulnerabilities. Noem reacted with visible outrage, accusing the Congresswoman of dragging tabloid garbage into an official hearing. But Kamlager-Dove did not back down. Instead, she reframed the question in a way Democrats are likely to continue emphasizing publicly. She argued that the issue was not about private morality or gossip. According to her argument, the concern was whether a personal relationship could compromise judgment, decision-making, chain of command, or create inappropriate influence over federal operations. That distinction became central to the exchange. And historically, Congress has raised similar concerns before, across multiple administrations and both political parties. Lawmakers have long argued that undisclosed personal relationships inside government can become security risks because they may blur professional boundaries, complicate accountability, or expose agencies to outside leverage. Kamlager-Dove repeatedly brought the conversation back to national security. She referenced internal DHS warnings about heightened threats tied to global instability and argued that during moments of elevated risk, Americans need confidence that decisions are being made clearly, professionally, and transparently by officials operating within proper oversight structures. 55. Another important part of this hearing that viewers may miss amid the viral headlines was the discussion about special government employees. Noem defended Lewandowski by saying he served in that capacity and worked for the White House. That category does exist within federal government structures and allows outside experts or advisors to temporarily assist agencies. However, critics argue that administrations sometimes use those designations to bypass the transparency standards normally required for senior officials. Democrats are increasingly framing this as part of a larger pattern in Trump-aligned circles, where influential political allies operate in unofficial or loosely defined roles while still exercising substantial behind-the-scenes power. The hearing also became a clash over credibility itself. Kamlager-Dove entered multiple news reports and investigative articles into the congressional record, including reporting related to Lewandowski's past controversies, lobbying activity, assault allegations, and reporting about Noem's leadership at DHS. Republicans objected to several of those entries, reflecting how politically charged the hearing had become. But strategically, Democrats appear to be doing something larger here than just creating viral moments. They are building a public narrative around competence, ethics, and institutional stability. Instead of focusing only on ideological disagreements, they are increasingly trying to argue that Trump-aligned leadership structures create chaos, confusion, blurred accountability, and vulnerability inside critical government agencies. And politically, this matters because Homeland Security is traditionally an area where Republicans often claim stronger public trust. Hearings like this are part of an effort to challenge that perception by arguing that personal loyalty networks and insider influence are replacing professional governance. At the same time, critics of Kamlager-Dove's questioning will likely argue that the hearing crossed a line into personal attacks and sensationalism. That debate itself reflects a growing divide in American politics over what constitutes legitimate oversight versus political spectacle. But regardless of where people fall politically, the hearing revealed something important about the current state of Washington. Americans increasingly believe that informal influence matters just as much as official titles. Who has access, who whispers in the room, who shapes decisions behind closed doors, and who operates without public accountability have become central political questions in an era where trust in institutions is already fragile. And that is why this hearing exploded far beyond one shocking question. It touched on power, transparency, ethics, and whether the people making decisions inside critical government agencies are truly accountable to the public. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more in-depth coverage of congressional hearings, political investigations, and major national debates from a Democratic perspective.